I want to acknowledge also the support of World Universities Network and say what a great honor it is for me to share this opening session of World Universities Forum with my provost at the University of Illinois, Professor Linda Katehi. It is indeed a joy for me to be able to present one of the major addresses at this inaugural meeting of the World Universities Forum, a forum that I believe has great potential for becoming a major site for a global conversation, both physical, here at the conferences, and virtual, about higher education futures, about the issues that confront our universities, about the role they do and can play in society, about the ways they might confront our emerging problems and our emerging conditions, both national and global, about the manner in which the universities of the developed and developing world might relate to each other and cooperate with each other, and about the ways they might confront the challenges of globalization and the new distributed knowledge systems and knowledge production and knowledge dissemination entities, as Bill mentioned. As the World Economic Forum, concluded here only 2 days ago, has shown, our political and economic problems demand a global conversation. And so I believe is the case with the problems confronting our universities. In my view, never before has there been a more urgent need to discuss higher education in its global context, to deparochialize, if you like, our discussions about higher educational reform, because our systems are now becoming incredibly networked and incredibly linked, so much so that it's difficult to imagine systems developing in their own right without associations and links with other systems around the world. And also it's important for us to hear the voices of those who remain on the margins of the educational systems, both globally and locally. Now it's in this context about the importance of global conversation that I want to share some of my thoughts about American research universities, their historical strengths, what are the ingredients of their historical strengths, the role, and the global role they play, and some of the major issues that they confront in working from their historical strengths on the one hand and negotiating emerging realities on the other. Now I want to present this analysis both as an insider to the United States system, who's worked at American University, University of Illinois, now for 7 years, and someone who is also an outsider, who's worked in a number of different systems around the world and continues to do so. I must begin by stating the obvious, that American research universities represent one of the strongest, one of the largest, and one of the most productive systems in the world in terms of research, in terms of knowledge production and distribution, and training of high-level personnel. Very few people would deny that. Not surprisingly, therefore, countries around the world who are seeking to reform their higher education systems are now invariably looking to the United States as a model of good practices and as a model of a productive system, as a system that is remarkably robust with considerable capacity for survival and growth. It is a system that has been able to withstand pressures, both internal and external, in a range of creative ways, adapting to change without undermining its basic mission and structure. It has withstood numerous wars, major recessions, significant changes in social attitudes, dramatic demographic shifts, and repeated attempts to curtail its power and influence. Throughout the 20th century, it has continued to thrive, grow in stature and its importance to its communities and to the communities around the world. American research universities have thus become important centers of not only scientific and technological research, but also of critical debates about key social, cultural, and political issues. They have played an important role in America's economic, social, and cultural development, something other nations have widely acknowledged and are now seeking to emulate. Universities in East Asia and Southeast Asia, for example, have borrowed heavily on American expertise. In major South Korean universities, for example, a large proportion of their faculty has received their research training in the United States. China has looked to the United States to develop an elite group of 100 world-class universities. In seeking to become a major center of international education, Singapore has sought to emulate many of the features of American system, both in its teaching and its research practices. The now newly developed Singapore Universities of Management, for example, is based on the ethos and structures of the Wharton Business School from Philadelphia, extensively utilizing its faculty expertise in establishing a research culture appropriate to the demands of the global economy. The University of Melbourne in Australia, established in 1850s along the lines of the traditional colonial British universities, has recently decided to radically overhaul its academic structure and follow an American model with a comprehensive liberal arts and science undergraduate program followed by professional programs that are offered at the postgraduate level. In Europe, we'll hear a little more about that day after tomorrow, too. Reforms driven by Bologna and Lisbon agreements have, at least in part, been influenced by the American model that I'm talking about. Now, the appeal of the American model is not hard to understand. By any standards, it is a hugely successful system, attracting scholars and students from around the world. A large proportion of graduates of the prestigious IITs in India, for example, end up eventually in the graduate programs of American research universities. Now, this is so because the research culture and its program of research training have few parallels. As a system, its research productivity is highest in the world. According to Shanghai's Jiantong ranking system, universities in the United States represent the top 85 research universities of the world. According to my colleague at the University of Melbourne, Simon Martinson, the global dominance of the US research universities can be shown in various patterns that he has demonstrated in the flows of students, faculty, and research expertise. Now, while the appeal of the American universities is not hard to note, it is much more complex task to provide an account of their success. What are the key determinants of their success? How have American universities been able to develop and retain their global supremacy? A rather simple explanation of their success might, of course, suggest that it is their financial and material might. It is the resources that they possess. It is certainly true that the American system is richer than most others, supported not only by the state, though now in declining ways, but also by corporations and a highly developed network of alumni and philanthropic support.